Hello everybody and welcome to the Telkom VS Gaming HSEL Esports League. We are here with the grand final of the High School Esports League. We have got a match between Paul Roos Gymnasium and Parklands College. I'm joined by Nick. How exciting that we get the chance to cast a High School Esports League match.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's important that we're seeing the younger generation actually starting the esports young, right? So we see that with through schools, and we see the schools, the 38 schools actually involved in the HSEL, that they're starting young, they're starting to breed the talent young. And that's exactly what we want in esports in South Africa.
Exactly that, Nick. Get an opportunity as early as they can to get their hands on the keyboard and mouse and have the facilities provided for them at the school level, not just having to go home after school and then focusing on esports, but finding a balance between the two in the same environment is really exciting when you think about it. I mean, these teams have had to fight a long way to reach this point, Nick. As you saw in the graphic, there were 38 schools that started out in this journey, and now only 2 remain. As I said, Parklands College versus Paul Roos Gymnasium is what's going to be making up the final today. A best of 3, with the winner taking away the title of champions. Paul Roos Gymnasium are the defending champions as well. They've won the past 2 years of the High School Esports League Grand Finals in Counter-Strike. They also won the League of Legends final yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So they're setting the tone, right? Because we all know that Paul Roos Gymnasium in South Africa is one of the schools that you always look to when you talk about some of the best performing schools in your traditional sports like rugby, cricket, hockey. Now they're coming into esports and they're setting the standard as well.
Definitely. And we've seen Paul Roos so far through the tournament. They haven't tasted defeat. They've been in the upper bracket the whole time. And who did they meet in the upper bracket? Parklands College, and they actually got one out in the best of 1 victory. But today's a best of 3, so that's going to be a bit different. But Parklands College, they're actually in the lower bracket. They got dropped out by Paul Roos, but they still beat the likes of Benny's, Milnerton to reach the grand final that they find themselves in today. So it is a BO3. It is a bit of a different format. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. But as I said, Paul Roos, they're definitely coming into as favourites, trying to be back to back. So it's something to keep in mind. You know,
back to back to back.
Back to back.
With the 3-peat.
Exactly. Yeah, we already know someone who may have a chance to do that today later. So it's going to be exciting. But yeah, Paul Roos definitely coming into this as favourites, and they'll be fighting a stiff opposition in Parklands College, so it's definitely going to be an exciting game to feast our eyes upon.
Did you say Parklands eliminated St. Benedict's?
Yes, I
love it. Guys, for anybody who doesn't know, my esteemed co-panelist here, Nick, he is a past pupil at St. Benedict's, so Parklands College bringing him the pain already.
It's because I wasn't playing.
That's what it is.
That's what I'm going to say.
You were just past the curve, unfortunately. Did you ever play at St. Benedict's?
Unfortunately, as soon as the esports actually came into Benny's, I had already left the school. So they did actually make the final last year, which is something to keep in mind. The fact that Parklands actually knocked out Benny's, rather, who actually made it to the final against Paul Roos last year. So it's something to keep in mind that Parklands College, they're definitely here. They're not messing around. They're going to take the fight to Paul Roos. But I think Paul Roos, we see that they started esports young, and they've reaped the benefits, right? They're trying to be back to back to back. Whereas the schools that have come into it a bit late, they're lagging behind. And Paul Roos, if they carry on like this, they're going to be taking all the accolades of High School Esports League in South Africa in the years to come.
I mean, I'll let you guys in on a little secret, because we got to chat to Louis van der Merwe from Paul Roos, which we'll have that interview to play a little bit later on. And he told us that they actually are starting to provide esports facilities and get proper esports centers geared up and ready with 6 gaming computers and everything else, all the peripherals in the network, not just using the computer lab, which has been the traditional approach from most of the schools getting involved in esports. So actually starting to take it to the next level, which is really exciting and exactly what we want. So we have got an interview now with Adapt from Parklands College. Are you with us, Adapt? Are you going to be joining us? There you are. Welcome, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So why don't you just let us know how old you are and what grade you're in?
I am 16 and in grade 11.
Okay, so still a long way to go in your esports career, but really starting and at the beginning as early as you can. Why don't you tell us a little bit what it's like to have esports provided as a traditional sport at your school?
I think it's very, very nice, because there are lots of people who are better at the more physical sports, and then there are others who use more of their mental side and play. So it's just nice to have an outlet such as gaming and esports at school to showcase your talents.
That's awesome, man.
100%. You talk about showcasing your talent, and you speak about the normal, if you will, sports that you have at your school. So I want to know, you being an esports candidate at Parklands College, how do people perceive you? Do they perceive you any differently, knowing that you're in the Counter-Strike team, or is it sort of the same?
No, I think at our school we have respect for whatever people choose to do, whether it be normal, like traditional sports like tennis or soccer or esports or whatever. Everyone supports you at the college 100%.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I remember back when, I was at Northcliffe High School, and they used to also have a bit of an esports thing going, but it was still very, very early. And like when you would go around, telling people you were part of it, people would look at you funny and think that you were from another planet. So that's really awesome, man. I'm really glad to hear that. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how the high school esports league has benefited you as an individual and your school as well?
I think with regards to me, it has allowed me to play in more of a team format and just enjoy playing with my teammates a lot because we've gotten to know each other really well over the past season. And yeah.
That's awesome, man.
100%. You speak about your other teammates, and you're one of the most well-known players in your team for Parklands College. So, like, have you got any little nuggets of knowledge you want to set on us for your other teammates that are running into the final?
I think just with regards to our whole team, I think we're all well known in our own way. Like if you look at people like Chili Willy, who are rising the ranks in like CSGO, semi-pro and Faceit and all of that. You have Blaze, who's been playing for years and years and years. He's very experienced. We have Exalt, who's been playing as long as me. We've always been comping together, playing Faceits together, all of that.
Nice.
And Kaz, who just recently joined, he's very promising. I see very great.
Awesome, man. So going into this game, into this grand final, the best of three, it was actually Paul Roos Gymnasium that knocked you guys down to the lower bracket where you lost 16-14 on Mirage. How are you feeling about the match today?
And I think in the last game, we kind of fell into playing their game a bit. Today, we're going to focus on our game solely and just play our hearts out, like representing Parklands College.
Awesome. Well, Adapt, it's really exciting to hear from you and see where you guys are going. You're such a youngster and you're an absolute superstar with tons of potential. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys on the server, man. Best of luck for today.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. That was Adapt from Parklands College, who we will be seeing playing in the final in a few moments against Paul Roos Gymnasium. Nick, you just love to see how traditional sports has been amalgamated with esports and how they're just perceived on the same level now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that really goes back to kudos to Parklands College. He said himself that they seen just like all the traditional sports players and they get the same backing that the traditional sports players do. And that's definitely a good start. If we want to see esports rise as a whole, not only in schools in South Africa, but also as the whole South African esports scene itself. So to see that schools get the backing, or rather schools give the backing for the players that need it, it's a big move forward for the young players in the South African scene.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Speaking about the young players in the South African scene, we have now got Electrics from Paul Roos Gymnasium on the line. Oh, and he's all suited up as well, looking smart as ever. I hope you're not going to be playing in that uniform.
I'll probably change out to something more comfortable later.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, man, and giving us some of your time. Why don't you just let us know how old you are and what grade you're in?
18 in the end of matric now.
Okay. So how long has esports been a thing at Paul Roos Gymnasium?
It started about at the beginning of 2018. IT teacher came into the school, Mr. Van Amava, and a bunch of people approached him with the idea of esports, and from there on it's been growing amazing in the school. So
you say you're in matric right now, and obviously you're heading towards the end of the year, but you have been able to be a part of this esports project for a few years. How do you feel like this, in particular, the high school esports league, has benefited you as a player and your school as well?
For me as a player, I'd say more just playing with a bunch of friends is really fun. And then seeing up and teaching them on a higher level is also fun. For school, I feel like overall it gets us a different kind of exposures than the normal sport, because obviously there's quite a big esports scene out there.
Yeah.
I just feel like the school benefits a lot from it as well.
100%. So, Electric, you're one of the more well-known 10 that we're going to see in the server today. Obviously, you playing for Ikasi, or rather being the sub for Ikasi. So, I want to ask, like, what has Ikasi's influence been on you? Like, obviously, you're probably going to be playing a different role amongst your team at school. So, has Ikasi had a big influence on how you play amongst the school players?
I think Ekasi, as well as my previous teams I've played for, have a big impact on like just the general things I know, like our IGL and Ikasi Gemini and the people that help like DMS have a big influence on how I play CS and approach everything on a more tech. So they have had a massive impact on my kind of play style like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're really fortunate, right? You're a young up-and-coming player and you're getting to learn from the experience. As you mentioned, Gemini and DMS both have a very, very great grasp on the game of Counter-Strike and have a very good understanding of the game. So it's cool to hear that you are, learning a lot from them and taking away a lot of experience from that. Electrics, why don't you tell me, how does you as an esports player get perceived in the school? Of course, Paul Roos Gymnasium is very well known for the likes of rugby and cricket and hockey, but now you're an esports player. Do you get the same sort of recognition as the rest of the traditional sports?
I get a different kind of recognition. Our school has recognized esport as a sport. I do have full colors for esports because we have won Comic-Con 2 years in a row, like the high school esports league. And obviously amongst like friends and things, it's like a new kind of fun. It's excited and it's fun to see people being able to play games on a competitive level and overseas, maybe in South Africa teams like ATK making a living out of it at this point. So it's good, yeah.
Awesome, 100%. You talk about being back-to-back HSEL winners, so you're trying to make it the three-peat. Does that add any extra pressure onto you guys, or not at all? You're just going to go in and play your game?
I think the most important thing is just focusing on our game, not get too caught up in the fact that we've won 2 years, because that's in the present and it's not going to help us today. I do think we might have a slight mental edge over them, but as far as that goes, we're just going to take it like another best of 3 we play.
Awesome, Electrics. Well, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and sharing your thoughts with us, man. And best of luck and keen to see where you guys are going to be taking this in the final.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. That was Electrics playing for Paul Roos Gymnasium in the final in a couple of minutes, which will be against Parklands College. Nick?
Yeah, I think Electrics, when you look at the 10 in the server today, he's definitely one of the names that jumps out. He's one of the more well-known names. So I think he's definitely going to be one that we're going to see at the top of the scoreboard. So he's definitely going to be a danger man for the side of Paul Roos. We spoke to Adapt for the side of Parklands College. I think he's probably definitely one of the danger men for them. So I think it's going to be a bit of a head-to-head battle, probably playing different roles than what they're normally accustomed to. But, it's a best-of-3 final. You're going to have to make sacrifices to benefit the team.
Yeah.
And we're going to see both teams go head-to-head. Obviously, it's a big game. It's a grand final. It's a best-of-3. Can Paul Roos make it back-to-back, or will Parklands College end their streak?
We're going to be finding out shortly. Speaking about Parklands College, we have got Joel Dixon on the line, a member of staff at Parklands College. Hi, Joel.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving us some of your time.
Pleasure.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit more about the esports division at Parklands College and what sort of provisions and facilities you guys have been making for the esports scene and the sport in general?
So Parklands is a tech school, so we regard ourselves as one of the leaders of technological innovation in education in the country. And so as a tech school, we have a massive interest in any sort of esports competition as well as any tech competition. So we've been involved with the esports for a couple of years now, and getting into the robotics side of things and the coding side of things. So all those areas are very very important to us. So for us, we've been trying to foster culture of interest in esports as well as traditional sports at the school.
Awesome.
You speak about the big interest you have in esports in general. So from you guys who have come into the esports scene relatively early compared to other schools, have you got any message to schools that may have doubts about the high school E-League or maybe have doubts about esports in general?
Well, I mean, it just takes a little bit of observation of what's going on in the international scene, to having a look at the interest that's being fostered across the world in esports and the prize pools in these. I mean, what companies are investing in these huge esports events and the size of these crowds that are being being generated at these stadiums. So, I mean, it's no joke, and it's something we must definitely take seriously, and especially with the current climate, who knows how long we're going to be able to have traditional sporting events, and how long it will be until we can open up the stadiums again. So, it might be esports as the future. So we need to start looking at that quite seriously.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an inside joke in the esports scene. How people have always said that the sports are always going to be superior, and it's like, well, through this global pandemic, the only thing that has been continuing is esports. So it is a nice little extra that has come through. Mr. Joel Dixon, what would you have to say about the high school esports league and how it's benefited your school and the players coming through the ranks as well?
Well, it's really it's great to get the school involved and get that kind of foster that culture of competition that you wouldn't see if it was just solo players, competing in competitive games normally. So you kind of foster a pride across the school in the team. I mean, when we played our games against PRG, and because we streamed the ones with PRG and with Milton, I think, we had quite a few kids join us from the school to come back their boys.
Awesome.
Which is just fantastic, and to see. I mean, the same from other schools, to see them come in and show their pride and support their school. It's just fantastic. I mean, that's what we want. That's the goal. One of the goals.
All right. Well, Joel Dixon, thank you so much for catching up with us and just sharing your thoughts about how things are run at Parklands College and exactly the team as well. It's really cool to hear from you, man, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Look forward to the game.
Yeah, best of luck to your boys. That is Joel Dixon, one of the facilitators at Parklands College. His team will be playing against Paul Roos Gymnasium in the grand final in about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think it's what we're hearing, this constant message coming out from Parklands at least, is the backing that they've got for this esports league as a whole, as well as the esports players that they have in school, which is a massive thing. To think that esports was still quite taboo 2-3 years ago, but now you're seeing schools making a lot more mainstream along with traditional sports, treating it the same way. You're seeing that pupils are getting the backing that the rugby players, that the football players, that the cricket players are getting, which is massive, not only for the pupils themselves, but for the confidence and for, as I said prior, the growing of the whole esports league and the whole esports scene as a whole in South Africa. So it's big that schools like Parklands, like Paul Roos, that have benefited from having esports at a young age in the school. It's good that we're seeing a growth as a whole from Parklands as well as Paul Roos, and we're going to see them in the final. They're reaping the benefits of starting early.
Exactly that. Let's hear a little bit about more Paul Roos's situation, because we actually got to catch up with one of their facilitators, and in fact, actually, we found out now the IT teacher a couple of days ago. Let's hear what he had to say. We are joined by Louis van der Merwe from Paul Roos Gymnasium, and we have an opportunity to ask him a couple questions about their esports division at the school, because for anybody who doesn't know, there's been the high school esports league being played throughout the year, and we're finally reaching the final weekend. Welcome, Louis, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
So let's just jump straight into it, because it's really cool to be able to talk to somebody who's part of the school and seeing it from that sort of perspective, because it's obviously quite a new thing to have esports involved at a school level.
It's a new thing in South Africa, but we've been doing it for nigh on 3 years now at Paul Roos.
Yeah, and you guys have had quite a lot of success as well. You're in the finals weekend of the Counter-Strike and the League of Legends here, and you won last year as well.
Yes, we did. We've won the CSGO division 2 years in a row, so we're hoping to add a third to this one.
Okay.
And the League of Legends, I think we came third last year, so we're hoping for gold this time.
Okay, so straight up, I'd just like to know, how much focus do you guys put on esports at your school in comparison to the traditional sports like rugby and cricket, which your guys' school in particular is so well known for?
That's a really good question. I'll have to be honest, in terms of focus, it's not the same as the focus on rugby and cricket at all. But in terms of support, we have gotten support from the children from the ground up, and it's being followed amazingly. The kids are watching the streams. There are people emailing me about coming to Paul Roos specifically for esports,
Wow.
and our principal, who is a technological dinosaur, said lovingly, he is completely behind us. He supports us all the way, and he just wants us to excel at what we do. And he believes in Paul Roos being an inclusive school so that kids of all sports can find their groove there.
100%.
So that's pretty cool to have a principal like
Very,
that.
very cool.
Very cool. So I wanted to ask you, what is your message to schools that may not treat esports the same way you guys do, or do you have a message for them at all?
Oof, I would ask them to reconsider. I mean, if you look at the future and esports in general in the world, it's taking off like a wildfire. It's super important to the kids. All the kids are playing it. And it's not just about playing games. I mean, we've seen our first team rugby going on tours, and they sit in the bus and everyone's playing PUBG Mobile or Fortnite or whatever it is they're playing. And they're playing competitively. They're so hooked on this competitive aspect that it's wonderful to see. I mean, I get so amped just watching the kids perform. And it's not just playing games for me. It's all about team tactics and learning to handle a victory, learning to handle a defeat, learning to handle team sports and personalities. It's got all the elements of traditional sports. It's just a new platform.
Yeah.
It's super popular, and you should get on it while it is still here, or you will be left behind.
Oh man, you've got such a fresh take on the esports scene, and it's so refreshing to hear as well. And I love that you acknowledge that there's so much more to esports than just playing a game, right? Because there's a whole lot of life lessons that also get learned throughout your esports career. Even just, working with other people and building up your results. There's so many other skills that are developed. So it's really cool that you guys are aware of that and on top of it.
Definitely. It's very hypocritical of me not to actually believe in that, being a gamer myself.
Okay.
Sometimes you play for enjoyment, and then there are times when you log on, you're like, I have my friends, we've been practicing together for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now we're competitive and we're going to win. And it's a different thing for enjoyment and playing for competing and winning.
Absolutely.
Both wonderful, but completely different.
Yeah. So, Louis, what sort of facilities do you guys have at the school to make provisions for the esports scene?
Well, we have the computer labs, but surprisingly, I've gotten the go-ahead to now erect a little esports lab for us with 6 PCs.
Nice.
So we're busy building that. But from next year onwards, we'll have an actual esports lab with 6 PCs. One will be for the streamer, the other 5 will be for competing players.
Wow.
Or it'll be the 6th one will be for the coach, so that we can have some actual sessions coaching the kids and being better.
That's really cool. Like what I would have taken to have that sort of facilities at my school when I was back then. I'm an avid esports lover myself, Matt and myself, everyone here. So it's great to see that you're pioneering the way forward for schools, and especially with HSEL and VS Gaming. 100% kudos to you with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are setting the standard, getting ahead of the pack as well, because you guys are already getting in positions to make this a mainstream thing in the school. Just one last question. You touched on having that 6th computer, and it could be for a coach. Do you guys have any traditional coaches in position for the esports players in the school?
As far as coaching goes, no, we don't have. We have a lot of talented kids that help each other, and I facilitate them in helping each other be better.
Yeah.
Knowing a lot about CSGO, I can give them a lot of advice, and I make them practice smokes and flashes and things,
Nice.
and we talk about team strategies. But I'll be honest that these kids are so far beyond me in terms of skills. Like, I'm good, they are excellent.
Yes.
And the amount of time that they put into being the best is an amazing time commitment on their half.
Yeah.
I hear them talking to their parents about how much time they're allowed to put into their academics per day and how much time they're supposed to do traditional sports, and then how much time are they allowed to the esports, because it has to be a balance between everything.
Yeah.
And even energy into esports, and they're amazingly brilliant, good at it. I respect them so much for what they do.
Well, Louis, all I can say is thank you for this amazing input that you guys have been, bringing to the table at the school level, because it's certainly going to be making a very big difference going forward in the grand scheme of things. So it's really awesome, and best of luck to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Good luck this weekend. That was Louis van der Merwe from Paul Roos Gymnasium, and what an amazing thing to hear from his side, Nick.
Honestly, what I would have given anything to have a principal with that sort of backing when you're busy playing the game you love, right? Yes, it's seen as a bit more taboo, but we're going out of that sort of realm where esports is becoming a lot more mainstream, which is exactly what we all love in the esports world ourselves. So I 100% respect the Paul Roos Gymnasium principal and what he has back backing for the high school E-League, and we're seeing exactly what's happening, right? They're on the way for a 3 back-to-back CSGO winning squad. So definitely kudos to him, and whatever he's doing it right.
I mean, they're even getting a little gaming esports facility set up there with 6 machines that are going to be geared for gaming, not just using the computer lab, which can run games. It's actually geared specifically for esports. And that's exactly what you want, right? You want all the facilities in place. He spoke about getting coaches as well. Like in your traditional coaches, you have your specific coaches for the different sports. They're going to be incorporating that in as time goes by. And that's exactly what you want to see. So fantastic to hear that. And we continue to move forward in South Africa and in esports as well. Whew. Hello everybody and welcome to the Telkom VS Gaming High School Esports League. We have got a phenomenal final on today between Paul Roos Gymnasium and indeed Parklands College. It is going to be a best of 3 matchup to see which school will be crowned the champions of the High School Esports League. Will it be Paul Roos Gymnasium making the three-peat? They won in 2018, they won in 2019, and they're looking to do it again here today. Or will be Parklands College finding their debut maiden title, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Roos, what they would give for a back-to-back-to-back CSGO victory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, HSEL, they've been here since it's been young.
Yeah.
The question is, can they make it 3 in a row? We've seen this with other sports across schools, and now esports is being more mainstream, and you've seen this from the schools that are competing in the tournament. Started off with 38, now there's 2. It's Paul Roos, it's Parklands College. The question is, can Paul Roos make it the three-peat?
That is a good question, Nick. These two teams did play against each other twice throughout the year. The first occasion, Paul Roos Gymnasium won 16-13, and on the second match, Paul Roos Gymnasium won 16-14 on Mirage. So, Nick, in the past 2 games that they played against each other, yes, Paul Roos Gymnasium have gotten the better of them, but they've both been very closely contested games. So, off the back of that, anything can happen today.
Yeah, definitely. They've both been very contested games, and they've both been best of ones, right? So best of ones, they're known for really going either way. And today, it's a grand final, it's a best of 3. So definitely the better team on the server is going to take the victory. But the question is, yes, Paul Roos, they've got the 2-0 up against Parklands College. But what a better time to show that you have fight left in you if you're Parklands College. And if you win out the best of 3, obviously you get your maiden title.
Yeah.
And you knock Paul Roos off the porch that they find themselves on. 2 in a row. Can they make it 3? Parklands College, they're going to want to take that away from them.
Absolutely, they are. I'm talking a little bit more about the High School Esports League. If you're not familiar with it, it's an innovation that's come through from Telkom VS Gaming, and it's one of their ways that they're enterprising gaming through the different high schools across the country, and just trying to get it up there with the mainstream traditional sports as well, integrating the schools with esports and getting it at that ground level. It's exactly how you want to approach it as well, because now we've got players who are playing in big finals already. We spoke to Adapt earlier. He's only 16 years old and he's already playing in a final like this, which it builds up that big match temperament, grows their experience, and they haven't even played in like a really big esports team yet. When they do reach that stage of their careers, when they're ready to make that jump, they're going to have that experience behind them already.
They're going to have that experience. They're going to be ice cold in the server when you're fighting for best of 5 grand finals when there's 100,000 rand on the line.
Yeah.
Sounds awfully familiar, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to see maybe Adapt as a prospect for the future. I think he definitely is. As you said, 16 years of age, he's in grade 11. He's doing what he can in the academics front at Parklands College, and now it's his time to show what he can do on the serve. And he's going to be against Electrics. He's well known in the scene for Paul Roos. He plays for Ikasi. He had a stint in Critical 5, so he's got the experience and the backing in terms of teams that he's played in the South African scene.
Yeah.
But now it's a team format in the school scene. So we're going to see if Paul Roos can make it 3, or if Parklands College are going to get their maiden victory.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about people who have made it big from the High School Esports League. One of the players who played in the final last year, his name is Mistim, and he is now in ATK as the captain and IGL the very next year, and he's going to be partaking in that grand final of the Telkom VS Gaming Masters Season 5 a bit later on at 1:30. That broadcast will start. Match goes live at 2 p.m. But that's exactly the storyline that we want to be looking at, right? You got Mistim, who's come up through the ranks of the High School Esports League, and he's now transitioned into South Africa's best CSGO team and one of the top organizations as well, with a very large prospect of them going to America next year as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's something to look at. So if you look at Mistum's blueprint, at what he's done, he's come through the high school esports ranks, and now he's fighting for ATK and possibly looking to go overseas to North America, right? So it's something interesting to look at. That Mistum, he's come through the ranks of the high school esports league. He fought it out. He competed last year. Unfortunately, didn't get the W. But the question is, he's part of ATK now, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you've gone through the ranks. You can go with his blueprint and maybe take part like Mistum did, and maybe adapt, and Electrics will follow suit.
We'll have to wait and find out. We have got the veto in the first map will be Inferno, picked by Parklands College. The second map will be Nuke, picked by Paul Roos Gymnasium. I'm surprised that Nuke's been brought to the table here, considering what a complex map it actually is. And maybe that gives us a bit of insight into how much work Paul Roos Gymnasium have been doing, because Nuke is one of those maps where if you've been practicing a lot and stratting it really hard, generally you're going to be able to win against opposition who haven't been playing the map at all, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. Nuke is more of these intricate maps where you need to have your rotates on points. If no one's down that B bomb site, then it's pretty much going to be a free round wins for the T side. For the CT side, if you have your setup on lock, then the T side, they're going to have a really hard time trying to fight that out. The Inferno pick is a bit iffy. I know Chili Willy, he knows he plays over towards half forward, like a Mag 7 and a Negev towards upper B, so maybe we're going to see that throughout the matchup. And Inferno is more, in terms of this sort of scene, probably a bit more of a puggy sort of map, so we're going to see what they can get done. But as you said, Paul Roos, they probably put in a lot of the work on a map like Nuke, where they can take it out as a trump card pick, and maybe Parklands won't even be able to show up on a map like that. If you think about the people that are in the server, they don't have all the experience in the world, so maybe Paul Roos, maybe they've got the one up on Nuke, but you never know what could happen. Maybe Parklands College, they've also been practicing it a lot. I doubt these two teams have a 6 map pool, maybe even a 5 map pool, but maybe that Nuke pick, it could be a trump card for the side of Paul Roos.
Perhaps we're going to have to wait and find out. We're moments away from jumping into this grand final best of 3 of the high school esports league between Paul Roos Gymnasium and Parklands College, and we will see who will be crowned as the champions here this morning. As Nick said, we're going to be having the potential of the three-peat from Paul Roos Gymnasium, as they won in the past 2 years. Parklands College looking to find their maiden title. They did lose out to Paul Roos Gymnasium a bit earlier on in the season. They actually lost twice, 16-13 and 16-14 in 2 separate best of ones. Means that both of those games were very close, right? So coming into this grand final, there's every chance that they could walk away with the win. The one thing I will touch on is that the map that they played on was Mirage, where Paul Roos Gymnasium won 16-14, and Paul Roos Gymnasium came into this match and they vetoed Mirage off the bat. So taking that away, maybe